Hey everybody, Jordan here with Farm Builder, and today we're going to do something a little bit new for the channel. We're actually going to review someone else's video. So a while ago, I was reached out to. A gentleman sent me an email from the Apocalyptic Night channel, and I believe the gentleman's name is Giannis. I hope I'm not screwing that up, sir. And he wanted to make a video laying out a pig farm and then have me kind of give some feedback on it and review it and post a video. So finally got some time here to do it. I know we're about 2 weeks past when he posted his, so my apologies for that. But we're going to go ahead and jump into his video. So drop in earbud here and let's go.
I'd like to ask for your understanding because you may say I'm a man of many talents, but drawing is definitely not one of them. Definitely not. I'm really bad at it.
Drawing's not one of mine either.
I cannot draw a straight line. My wife is an artist. Among other things, she's also very talented. But she's also an artist. She's really good at drawing and painting, and she always makes fun of me. But yeah, it's fine. I'm better than her in swordsmanship. That's a good thing, right? Well, actually, she's pretty good at swordsmanship. At the women's level, she's, I would say, one of the best in the world right now, but she has yet to prove that. She will in the future years, I hope. Anyway, let me not ramble so much. The more arty ones of you show some understanding if my drawing ability is terrible. So I'll make something that kind of resembles a square. That's her brush, by the way. I wouldn't have something so fancy like this. She doesn't know I'm using it. I hope when she finds out that there won't be a civil war in the house. Nah, she's fine. So let's say that this is the boundaries of the land you have. It can be anything like a hectare, or it can be any kind of size. It's the same shape, just different sizes mean different capacity for the number of pigs you have. And my idea was that in the middle of this you have...
Okay, so we'll pause right here. We'll assume that we'll use the hectare reference as the frame for the scale he's using. I'm gonna say that's about 2.5 acres. Might have to look that up, but 2.5 acres here in the US is roughly 1 hectare. I'm probably wrong on that. My apologies, but we'll proceed.
You have a hexagon. I know the ones who can draw are laughing now at me. But what can you do? Okay, let's say this is a hexagon, approximately. And it's in the middle of the land. And what I'm gonna do now is that this hexagon, by the way, it can either be it has to be some reinforced material with a door. So let's say there are 6 doors, because there are 6 sides. Let's make the doors like this, and it can be from some steel, like the panels that they use for bulls and for cows, for cattle, to hold them in. Or it can...
Okay, so what I'm seeing here is similar to a wagon wheel setup that some farms use here in the States. And I assume he's referring to using what we call corral panels here, probably in a more temperate climate here where having a building might not be as necessary. But this is having from what I'm understanding here, a central housing or holding area for the pigs to be in, and then radiating out some kind of paddock system from there to the rest of the property. But let's see.
And yeah, so this will be either concrete or that panel. It can be any of that. The idea is that the pigs cannot get through it no matter what, because this will be their living area. So let's put the pig houses here. Jordan actually has made a very good model of pig houses. I have nothing to comment on that. It seems very, very good.
Okay.
So you can make something like that. Only the difference is that if you make this model that I'm suggesting now, this living area where the pigs will live, you won't need to make the shelters portable. They can just stay in place, because that's going to be the living area. It's not going to change. You won't need to move the pigs. The pigs will move, but without needing to move their houses, their housing. So you've got the housing here for the pigs. You've got the doors, and you've got some walls or some cattle panels I think they're called, I don't know, those steel bar made of bars that hold the cattle in, and so they will hold pigs as well. Although I have to comment something on that. Something that I learned by Joel Salatin, basically by watching his videos, is that he says there is a difference between cattle and pigs in the way that they try to get through a fence. The pig will try to dig under the fence, but the cattle will try to go over the fence. So those cattle panels, they're probably not ideal for pigs, because a pig, because they've got a little space in the bottom, because the manufacturers know that the cattle will not try to to crawl under the panel. They'll try to go over the top, so they make them higher. So maybe you can construct something of your own if you are a welder, or a welder, or make it out of concrete, and that's also gonna work.
Okay, so what he's saying here is true. If you are looking at using a physical barrier, which is what he's talking about, whether a cattle panel or a corral panel or what have you, that's not going to hold pigs for very long, because they will get bored in this type of enclosure and want to go somewhere else. So they're going to bust out. And this is why we use electric fence for all of our pig applications, unless they are in a barn for the winter. So what is striking me so far from watching this video is this is a very infrastructure heavy model. I'm not saying that's wrong, but the cost per pig is probably going to be pretty high to have a setup like this. But this might be something that you have to do if you're limited on the acreage you have available. So I see 8 or 9 shelters in his hexagon here. So one thing I'd be curious is how many pigs he's thinking of using with this system. At 2.5 acres for the entire area to rotate them through. That's not very many pigs, but for something like a homestead or something very small scale, maybe going for charcuterie or some kind of high value add, something like this could work. But let's keep going.
So in the middle, just to make it a bit of a trademark, and also to provide some acorns once every 2 years, which is fine. And to give them some shade, you need a tree. So let's say you put an oak tree. And of course, the oak tree will get very big and it will provide shade. Let's make it like that. You can see my drawing abilities, which are amazing.
Okay, before we go any further with this, that is going to be a problem, having any kind of tree in a place where pigs are going to be permanently. Pigs can be very destructive to trees, especially over a longer period of time where there's nothing else going on and they are bored. With a concrete floor under this, maybe you could have a secluded area right in the center where the tree grows. But again, it might be easier just to put a roof over this area or rig up some kind of shade canopy. A tree would be a hard one to do. Not saying it's impossible, but it would be difficult.
I'll make, you know, the trunk of the tree here. I made it green. Normally it's brown, but you know, just to give you the idea. So this will be shaded, this area. There you go. We've got the beginning. So now, what about the rest?
The core idea of shade.
So we can divide the land.
You need to be shading your pigs.
Like,
I just don't know if doing it with a tree would be very feasible.
Into six approximately same sized parcels. Oops, see, I warned you, didn't I? So I'll just draw this quickly, and I'll tell you how I'm thinking that this can be done without electric fencing. So you've got the fence here, the fences. Let me see. Okay. Hope the camera is not getting blurry or anything like that. So we got the fences here. So the fence, how are you going to make the fence so that the pigs don't get through it if it's not electrified? So I'll make one of them, and it applies to all of them.
Okay,
obviously.
So we're dividing this into 6 paddocks over 2.47 acres. So, you know, we're looking at, what would that be, roughly 0.4 acres per paddock. So a little under half acre per paddock. All right, so this helps begin to put some numbers to it, like what can we stock. Now here in Virginia where we are, we can stock our feeder pigs at 10 per acre and our sows at 2 per acre. Now that's going to be very different depending on your region, rainfall, soil type, all those kind of things. But you know, assuming we're going to use that number for this type of setup, we're basically looking at the ability to run 25 feeder pigs or 5 sows. So that's kind of the number of pigs that we're looking at here would be 25 feeder pigs or 5 sows using our stocking rates here.
The idea about it is you dig a trench next where you're going to put the fence. You first dig a trench, and as a soldier, Jordan probably has some knowledge of that. Just joking. So
I dug a few holes.
There's a fence here in the middle, and it's inside the trench. This way, the pig needs to go down and dig and then get up. It makes it more difficult. What will make it even more difficult is supporting the fence with trees. So we are putting some trees. No, I'll make the trees black so that, you know, because they're trees, they're tougher. And we're gonna put some trees which have a profile that they grow upwards and have a straight trunk. This will be made so that the fence will be better supported and cannot be destroyed by pigs that, you know, fall on it, because it's got trees on both sides. It's like a prison bar, and on the other side there should be a little offset. So a little offset.
Okay, so we'll pause here. So what he's looking at doing is digging a trench and putting a fence in, and then using trees to support the fence. I suppose that could work. Things that I would see being a hassle factor or a cost factor is planting all of those trees to support the fence, giving them however many years they need to grow to actually hold up the fence. But my biggest concern is pigs are a destructive rooting animal. They like to till the ground, and they will push dirt and roots and things up to the fence. So the trench is going to be filled in fairly quickly, and the pigs will be right up on the regular fence and chewing on the trees. So that is something to keep in mind. That would be a problem. And certainly once the trees are a little bit bigger and putting roots out into the paddocks, those roots are going to be eaten by the pigs. But let's keep going.
Here and here and here. This way they'll have more space for their, mostly for the roots, which will otherwise collide if they're right next to each other. So you have the trees like that in a zigzag pattern, and they go all the way to the end. One here, and 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 one here. So there, you have the trees. And then, to improve even more the protection of the fence, you should have some... Oops, that's a black one. You should have some bushes, some shrubs, and some other vegetation at the rest of the trench that will fill everything. And what you should choose is either hawthorn, which in Greek it's called krategos, which means, well, krategus is also the Latin name it's got, because, well, the Romans got it from the Greeks, obviously. And krategos in ancient Greek means the one who holds goats, because that was the only way they could make effective goat fencing in the ancient past. So that's pretty impressive, I say. It's a plant, it's a hedge, it's a bush, hedge variety that can hold goats, which is pretty impressive feat, if you ask me. Now,
I've seen this visiting farms in Haiti as well, where they're able to use native thorny bushes or cactuses to create a living fence to hold in animals. So this could be something that is very regionally popular and known. It's not something I would be familiar with here in Virginia, being able to use a native plant to make a fence strong enough to actually hold a pig, but perhaps there it will. I don't know. Again, my concern would be pigs are a rooting animal, and they will go for the roots of shrubs and trees when they can't go through it, and they eventually will destroy it. But there could be something there that works. I would love to see if you've seen something like that where you are. Definitely share it with me. I would love to see a living fence that holds pigs.
it would be a little easier for the pigs if it was on the same level as they are. They could go underneath and maybe, bite it, eat it, kill it, then maybe advance or dig, whatever. But it's a lot harder if there's a trench filled with it, which means that they directly come in contact with the branches and cannot get underneath the branches because they've got big thorns. And they cannot go underneath it because it's in the trench, and the lower section, the trunk of it, so to speak, is inside the trench and protected. So that makes it more difficult for the pigs. They have to go through the hedges, and they have to go through the fence then, which can be buried a little bit underneath the ground as well. It shouldn't be flush with the ground, and then is supported by the trees. The tree variety now. Which varieties you have to choose? One good tree variety is alder. The Italian alder in particular, which is going straight and up and has a small profile, like it's a thin tree. It's not spreading outwards too much. You could of course experiment with other stuff, but you have to take care of the side effects it may have. For example, with Robinia, with the black locust trees. They have the good thing that they've got thorns. There are thorny varieties of them, and they're also nitrogen fixing. They fix nitrogen to the ground, which is good. The same thing like actually the Italian alder trees do. They also fix nitrogen. But the problem is that they sucker a lot. And you may think this is not a problem, because it's in the trench. But you know, it may get out of hand, but let's say this is not a problem. But I think there are some concerns also about the toxicity of their the little peas they produce, the seeds they produce. I think if animals eat those seeds, they may have a problem.
So I don't know if this is the same black locust as what we have here in the States, but I do know pigs love to eat locust pods, and it has not been a toxicity issue that I am aware of. But again, it could be a locally contexted issue. Locust trees do grow pretty fast here. They do work pretty well for pigs at shading. The pigs will get into the roots some, but the locusts are pretty resilient at regenerating.
So you have to research the trees you want to plant. You may do all sorts of things. You can plant also, make it like an agroforestry thing, like a silvopasture. Plant some trees that you will take advantage of commercially, like, I don't know, walnuts and stuff. Like once a year you can get a harvest. Or you can plant some trees.
I love black walnuts.
Like eucalyptus or some normal alder trees, not the Italian ones. They don't coppice so well, so you can coppice them, or hazel trees, whatever.
We're using
so
a
you
lot
can
of black
coppice them for
our Silvopasture
wood, so you can get a wood harvest from all that fence. And now the bushes, the hedge that you are going to make here with the hedgerow you're going to make with the bushes, the shrub varieties. It can be hawthorn, like I said, but it can also be blackthorn. Blackthorn is the thing they make,
So something that we were actually talking about in a tour we just did yesterday. We were looking at some of the silvopasture we have here. There's two ways that you can build silvopasture. You either are planting them or cutting them. Removing trees from an existing growth to open up the canopy. And that's what we're doing to build silvopastures here, is reducing canopies in already wooded areas to open it up and getting good results with forage growth underneath that we can then use herbivores to harvest. And like he was saying here, some kind of higher value tree can be left. For us, that is black walnut and oaks and hickory. The pigs can eat the nuts, and the wood from those trees is more valuable than other trees.
Oh, the sloes, that makes the sloes, those blue little they're like grapes. They use them for sloe gin, to flavor the gin in Britain. So that's another solution. Those have huge woody thorns, so they're pretty good for deterring animals from getting through. So you can choose any of that. And now the idea is that in every one of those areas, you just plant 3 fruit trees.
Okay, big red flag right there. Fruit trees or sweet sap trees are the number one thing pigs will go after. Like here, gum trees, cherry trees, and even things like hemlock and pines during seasonal sap flush, they are going to get wrecked by pigs. So I would be very hesitant about doing any kind of fruit tree unless there is a significant fence around the tree to keep the pigs from impacting the root zone and tearing the bark off of the trunk. But let's see what his idea here is.
Oh no, let me correct it. You can plant 3 fruit trees that are big, and you can plant as many as you can in between, so that let's say that you plant some smaller ones as well. Yeah, something like that. So the idea should be that those trees that you plant together, they should have a similar harvesting time, that they produce fruit in a similar time. So let's say this will be the summer area. Summer, and then there should be a spring area, doesn't really matter where you put them with this system because you've got the doors. I will explain in a while how it will work. And let's say you have an autumn area, or fall, as Americans like to say. And although autumn I think is a more poetic word, I like it more personally. And then you can have a winter area with winter trees. And you can have another two that you can do whatever you want with. Maybe you have mixed stuff, or you could even leave them like that and use them in the winter, whatever you want.
Okay, so what he's laying out here is paddocks by season. The problem I would have here is that's way too long of a time for pigs to be in any one particular paddock. We don't want to have pigs in any one of our paddocks for more than 8 or 9 days. By that time, they have eaten anything of value out of that paddock. They have begun to till the soil, and if left longer, that's when it will start having the real deep, devastating impact on a particular plot. I like where he's going with having maybe some different crops and things in different areas, but I would highly recommend an accelerated rotation with this kind of model of no more than 7 to 10 days per paddock, and that would give you roughly a 50-day rest period before the pigs come back to the one that they just left. There'd be a lot of issues with manure overload, digging huge holes in the ground, and things that are very common with a continual graze or a continual presence management type of system. That's very common in a lot of outdoor pig operations. And the remedy to that is you got to move the pigs 7 to 10 days max per paddock.
But usually you will go for when most of the fruits are produced, if you want that, and that's probably the summer. So in the summer, you should have more summer, maybe one more summer fruits. I mean, it doesn't mean that you will only take them there in the summer. It just means that the fruits are summer fruits. Let's make it like this so you can see all of it. Okay, yeah, that's good. And I don't know, have also some more spring stuff here, or autumn. No, autumn is better. Spring, not too many fruits, really. So yeah, that's because few things flower in winter. So let's say you have something like that with all the trees. And the idea now is you have the gates. The pigs will come back here to sleep because they know this place. They've got their housing there. And you will just open a different gate every day. And you can also adjust it. Like there is more vegetation here. You want to take them here. So you take them there. You open that door. And then you want them to eat here. You take them there. Now you could do the Salatin way and let them graze a little bit. Jordan will tell us about that because I'm really curious. I really want to hear what he has to say about that. He probably knows better than any of us does, so he will probably have a good explanation about why he does it. And he can either let them graze until the grass is shorter, or he can let them strip the land completely and then plant stuff, overseed stuff.
Okay, so kind of what we were talking about before. Having a more rapid movement through these paddocks. So I like where he kind of evolved the thought to was, hey, we're not going to have the pigs just in this one paddock for the entire season. Again, what I would do is every 7 to 10 days, they're moving from one paddock to the other. So, it is true there's not as much forage for animals to eat during the winter, but they still are dropping as much manure. And manure management and nutrient overload of the ground is as big a concern to manage as forage availability and foodstuffs that are out there. So I would keep them moving every 7 to 10 days per paddock and give a paddock that has just been disturbed an extended period of rest before the pigs come back in.
Now, if you overseed stuff, another thing that you could do, in my opinion, and that would be a pretty innovative idea, is to, after they strip all the land of vegetation, that you should draw watering lines. I'll make them with the green marker.
Okay, some water lines.
Say you draw watering lines that you will, of course, retract later on.
I assume these are irrigation lines that he's referring to.
And yeah, they just water everything.
Yeah. So I'm going to assume you're in a more arid region here where rainfall isn't going to suffice to,
you know, some drip line,
crop.
some cheap drip line. It shouldn't cost too much. Well, depending on the size of the land, of course. But so the idea is that you should seed something and then try to keep the pigs out of that place.
Yep.
For as long as it takes for the crop to grow. You can also do stuff like, because you're not going to bother with, you know, weeding or anything. You don't need to do that. Even if there are some weeds growing, that's fine.
Just one quick thought here. It probably would just be easier to have a sprinkler type system where you're just running a trunk line out and then have a sprinkler from there that's throwing water over the whole paddock. You know, with the 1 hectare size, these are only half-acre paddocks, and so, you know, maybe 4 decent sprinkler heads should be able to cover the whole thing instead of having this extensive drip irrigation. But just an idea.
The pigs will eat everything when they get there, so it doesn't matter.
Yes, they will.
So
pigs love weeds.
Since the produce doesn't need to be perfect, you know, don't need to spray anything or weed or do anything. You can just let it grow on its own, and it can be, for example, you can plant corn, and then at the bottom you can plant something else that doesn't mind a little bit of shade.
Yeah, so definitely have a nurse crop.
Well,
clovers are great.
There is
millet, maybe.
I don't know. You can grow corn, for example, together with pumpkins or zucchini or stuff like that, of that family.
Oh, so even some more of a human.
It also includes squash. Yeah. And then what happens is when it grows after some months, during these months you put the pigs obviously at the other ones, at the other sections. Then when it's ready, you just take away all the watering lines, and you let the pigs in, and the pigs self-feed. Basically, they eat the corn and they eat the squash or whatever you have planted underneath, and they clean the area completely. They don't leave anything. They eat the corn and the stalk and everything, and you basically get free feed for your pigs, which is also very healthy. And on top of that, you also have the trees, which of course I know that it will reduce the crop by some percentage, because not all the sun will go to the ground.
All right, so I love the concept here of using the pigs to disturb the soil to plant some higher value type of crop. I would almost look at using that for human consumption, especially a crop where you're going to cook it before it's eaten to reduce the risk of some kind of bacterial or parasite transfer from the pigs to humans. So squashes would be great because they're cooked. We have something like potatoes or carrots, root crops. I would probably steer clear of the more like vegetable things like tomatoes, cucumbers and stuff like that that's eaten raw. But I would plant something that you will then eat, and the pigs can clean up whatever's left. The spoiled stuff, the bruised vegetables or fruits, and then the vines themselves. They could do a good job of getting rid of the pests there, or possibly combine it with an herbivore. If you're going to do high value forages, say something like a sorghum sudan or a millet or oats or barley, something like that. If you were to include a couple milk goats or maybe a cow or something that is going to get a lot more energy out of a forage than a pig would, and put that into either milk or protein, that's another thing that you can stack onto the same acres. But I like the idea here and where it's going.
Of course, I don't know how the sun is at Jordan's area. I'm suspecting it's not as sunny as here because few places are. And Here it would probably work better because we have a lot of sun, and even with some shading you can get a decent crop. Although of course with the full sun you get maximum cropping. But that's okay. It's a balancing of everything, and it doesn't matter because the trees also produce something, so it's no big deal. And it's no big deal if you feed your pigs for free for I don't know 10 days or 12 or 13 or 15. It doesn't really matter. It's still free food for the pigs. And you can do that with different vegetables and stuff like kale or anything you like. Of course, you should focus mostly on the high energy stuff, which is obviously more accustomed to warmer months. Not much is gonna grow inside the winter that produces too much energy, I'm afraid.
Okay, so again, for the winter, you could use more of a cover crop type thing as a forage that could be fed to an herbivore. If it's during the warm months and you want something for the pigs, stick with something that's more tuberish. So, like turnips, beets, maybe even some kind of potato, like a sweet potato. Something that's going to have a more starchy type of fruit or plant for the pigs to eat. Not something that's a forage is what I'm getting after. Squash, pumpkins, things like that.
And you can self-feed. You can let the pigs self-feed for an amount of time. Another thing that I forgot to say is that
it will depend on how many pigs you have.
System will have to be at the edge of the land as well, because obviously you don't want your pigs to run outside. But obviously it's going to be only from the inside, because it's probably also not allowed on the outside. So something like this. And then you will have the trees next to the fence as close together as possible, depending on the species of the tree. But still, you don't need them to get too huge. So you don't need to plant them very far apart. You just need them to grow enough so that they are sturdy and they support the fence, and that they can be next to each other without problems. It's just support, it's not the fence. The trees are not the fence. They're just there to support the fence. And let me finish it since I started it. I keep forgetting this is like a paintbrush. It's that arty part of mine that doesn't exist. And here the shrubs, of course, everywhere. So this should keep the pigs from running out. Now,
again, my concern would be not necessarily. Just make sure that your fencing is sufficient to hold pigs if you are not going to use electric. I'm a big fan of electric, but I understand he's trying to design one without using any electric fence. And then something else I'm curious about would maybe be a breakdown on just the cost of doing this system. How much are these trees and shrubs costing to establish this small pig lot? And just does that pencil out for what you're trying to do, the number of pigs you can produce? If it's something that's being done as just a self-sustainment thing, not looking to make it a business, and you're be able to bring external capital in to finance it, then that's fine. But if you are doing this as a business where the pigs are having to pay for all this, it might take a much longer time for your investment in all of this infrastructure to be recouped.
I'm not sure if you could also take advantage of the shrubs. I mean, there is one thing. It's that they produce some stuff. They produce some berries. The hawthorn also produces some little red berries, I think. I think they're red, if I remember correctly. And obviously the blackthorn does produce the sloes, which are blue. And purple blue, I think, something like that color. And you could take those and use them if you have some use of it. I mean, I know that with the hawthorns you can make marmalade or something like a jam or some, sweeten them somehow and make something of it. The sloes are very bitter, but you can remove the bitterness by processing them as well. And yeah, you can do something with that, or you can somehow collect them and feed them to the pigs for extra feed, if you want.
Just remember, if it's sweet to you, it's definitely sweet to pigs, and they will be going after that berry and most likely the shrub itself to eat the roots. So you would need to have some kind of fencing to keep the pigs from getting into those berries before you can.
The pigs will probably appreciate them more than you will. And the other thing is you can just leave them be, and the birds will love them. The birds love those things. They love eating things from shrubs, like little berries. And the birds are actually kind of beneficial because with the pigs, we obviously get a lot of dung, like a lot of shit that they produce, and the birds, some bird varieties will also eat bugs and like maggots and stuff. If you had chickens incorporated in this system, that could also work. You could also have like a small eggmobile, like Joel Salatin does, and move it from place to place. But it's a little more tricky because with this setup, you would have to move it through the gate and into another gate. But it can be done, especially if it's a small one. If you mostly keep them for hygiene and for having like 20 chickens, it's no big deal. It's a very small vehicle. You can put it on a cart and pull it yourself to another place when you switch.
So if you're unfamiliar with what he's talking about, an eggmobile is just any kind of trailer house type of structure with anywhere from 1 to 500 egg layers in it, maybe more. That typically would follow behind herbivores to scratch open the cow pies and eat the maggots out of that. You can use those with pigs as well. The problem will be if you are using the pigs to till the ground and overseed some other kind of crop, the chickens are then going to eat that seed that you would just lay down. So don't try to do both of those things, to both have an overseeding regimen that you're doing and have the egg layers following behind the pigs. They're going to eat your seeds.
The pigs, and make it always follow the pigs. Where the pigs were, then you put it. But then you cannot overseed and let the pigs trample the seeds. You need to seed the seeds normally yourself, or put seedlings inside or something like that, because obviously the chickens will eat the seeds as well. So you use it basically to sanitize the area that the pigs were in before, and then you plant the vegetables or whatever you want to grow if you want to do this system in that area afterwards. So those are my thoughts. I think that one great thing that this would do for Jordan or anybody who would like to be a pig farmer like him and have a farm like that and do what he does, it would eliminate moving the fences, and it would eliminate having to move all the food and the water. Like I see him carrying buckets of food to wherever the pigs are at this time. This way they can eat here and they can go for foraging in that area which is open, and then they can come back. You don't even need to move the shelters or anything. They can come back to sleep in the evening, or if the mothers can always be here like Jordan does it. You can see his videos on that, the farrowing videos that he has where he has the mothers with the babies, and he actually made a good system so they don't cannibalize the babies, and so that they don't trample them as well when they try to squeeze in when it's cold in the winter in the shelters.
All right, so he's got a good point here that having a permanently fenced and set up system, once it's done, is easier to manage. However, the reason that we have everything portable is because we want continual access to fresh forage in the entire paddock, and we want to break the parasitic cycle. So anywhere that you have the pigs always coming back to, even if it's just a central hub, you are then going to have a parasite problem because there's always a host present for those parasites. And pigs, just because the central area is their sleeping area, doesn't mean the pigs aren't going to drop manure in there, and that's going to build up over time if they are continually present in that hub 365. That's where you see some of the designs for these wagon wheel type management systems where that center hub is actually a building concrete floor and it's treated more like a deep bedding system or cleaned out every couple days. If it's just on the natural ground, you're going to have an overload issue, erosion, nutrient overload, flies, parasites, all the not so fun things that can be a problem with pigs.
And yeah, this way you can just open the gate, a different gate every day. And this way you will ensure that they go and eat what is available there, because they will want to explore and they will want to go and eat something new, which is green and fresh, especially after having stripped an area clean. And also, you know, the fruits that will be provided by the trees will be adding to their nutrition, because now Jordan is trying to bring in scrap fruit that, you know, producers throw away, but the pigs will of course not complain. So he brings it in and feeds it to the pigs to give them also something to fill their stomach better and provide them with some vitamins and stuff, obviously, and sugars, obviously. But you can do that just by having, I mean, a fig tree, you can have a fig tree in all those areas, and in the summer just change them from place to place, because a fig tree, you don't need to water, you don't need to care for it at all. It doesn't have any diseases or anything. You don't need to spray it or anything. It just produces copious amounts of figs without any care whatsoever. And there are trees like that as well. Other trees, like you can have also pomegranates and the lotus tree. I don't know, it's persimmon, I think it's in English.
So he's got a good point here that, you know, it is less involvement if the fruit or nut is falling off of a tree to the ground and the pigs are eating it right there. The challenge with that is having a continual supply of that for your pigs. You know, you'd have to do some calculations on how much fruit is being dropped off to how much the pigs want to eat, but it's only going to be for a short period of time during the year. What he was referring to is our apple feeding program, where we're getting scrap apples from a packing shed that's in the area. The reason that works for us for 6 months out of the year is because when they harvest all of the apples, they are putting them into a large cooling facility, you know, like a cool storage, and then pulling them out as they get orders and sorting them through. Otherwise, our apple feeding season would only be a month or two long, but the reason we can do it for 6 months is because those apples are in cold storage being preserved through the fall and winter. So just know, with any kind of silvopasture crop or planted crop, you're going to have a relatively short duration that the animals are able to self-harvest, and that is the challenge for building a, you know, annual seasonal type of self-sustainment pig system. Is you got to have a highly nutritious, you know, carb heavy, very proteinaceous forage or fruit or seeds or whatever for them to eat on a continual basis. Anybody can do it for 2 weeks out of the year when the corn crop matures, but it's a much bigger challenge when you're trying to do it in a year-round basis.
There are some other trees that you can do like that. You can even have grapevine. That you can make a hanging grapevine if you make an infrastructure with steel or some other kind of infrastructure that, you know, it stands over the pigs. And a grapevine also has deep roots and will still produce grapes and drop them if you don't care for it. They will be a little, you know, the pigs may get a little drunk, I don't know, because it starts turning into alcohol, the sugars. But still, it's free food for the pigs. You can do all sorts of things like that.
They're fun to see.
So I'd like to know what Jordan thinks about it. I hope it provided him with even a little bit of insight. Probably he has thoughts about a lot of that stuff. Or maybe I'm lucky enough to be bringing some kind of new idea to his table. And I'd like to see why it cannot be done the way I thought. Because obviously I don't have the practical experience. I'm just you know, playing around with ideas right now. And what would be best than to get an experience from such a person as Jordan, who has the experience and you know, can evaluate what works and what not. So thanks for watching, everybody. There is the link to Jordan's YouTube page in the description. Go check him out. I really think he's a very nice guy. He's a really cool guy, and a guy of integrity and character, like a lot of military people usually are. And I think you will enjoy his channel, especially if you're into permaculture and things like that. So until the next time, and until Jordan's reply video, I'd like to thank you all for watching and wish you a very, very nice day.
Okay, so kind of my thoughts after watching the video are, it is, like you said, a very permaculture-oriented type of design. I do not have a lot of experience with building these permaculture systems. Our approach is to take what the land already has and either thin out trees or begin a long-term process of using cover crops and things like that. If you are, if the goal here is to create a beautiful landscape for, say, a very small farm, a micro farm, and you want a beautiful landscape that has some pigs in it, this might be a system to consider. My reactions, though, from we run hundreds and hundreds of pigs at a time. We birth thousands of pigs a year. Is this would be very costly for us to do at scale when you're talking about the amount of trees that have to be planted and the shrubs, and maintaining fruit trees and all of that, and the irrigation system. For us, it would be impractical, but for something small scale, perhaps it's something good to look at, where you're not necessarily weighing the infrastructure cost as your first priority when you are looking at a business plan or a design or a layout. So what I do like about it is you are putting pigs back into a natural type of habitat where they are outdoors, they're under shade trees, they're self-harvesting crops. That's all very good and commendable. My concerns would be not to overstock the particular plot with too many pigs. Like I said earlier on, I would keep this to no more than 20, 25 feeder pigs and maybe, or 5 sows. If you're going to have the sows and feeder pigs, we're talking maybe 1 or 2 sows and then their piggies throughout the year. Be careful about the impact the pigs can have on fruit trees and berry bushes. Anything that produces a sweet fruit, that we think is sweet, pigs really think is sweet, and they're going to really go after those root systems, those trunks, those shrubs. So you would need to have fencing to keep the pigs off of those. Now, I guess I would be curious why this much effort would be expended to create a electric fence free system when solar energizers have gotten so cost efficient and reliable and portable now, that we can keep a group of hundreds of pigs in a couple acre paddock anywhere we want on the farm with just one charger, a single strand of electric fence, and we just keep the fence clear. When they move, the fence is coming up, and now the area is free of all obstructions until pigs come back around. But so this is a wagon wheel type of configuration. I've seen some things like this, never to the extent of planting the trees and the shrubs. That would be pretty cool to see happen. And so if this is something you end up actually implementing and building out, I would love to see a follow-up video for how that worked. Definitely keep me posted on that. But yeah, that's kind of my initial thing is, love the ideas of rotation. I would keep that more to 7 to 10 days per paddock and give a 50-day rest period. So I would not be moving the pigs from one paddock to the other on a daily basis. That's only a 5-day rest period for a paddock that was previously touched. I would go more for 7 to 10 days on one paddock and then move them to the other. And then just monitor the impact that's going to happen in that hub area of the design, that the pigs are not tearing that up too extensively. It might be worth keeping them pushed out into one of those paddocks and just let them sleep out there. They'll be fine. Just throw the water trough over the fence or what have you. And keep that ground impact as one of the key metrics you look at for the overall health of your pig enterprise because we don't want to overload the soil with either nutrients or disturbance and cause overload and runoff issues. So that's my feedback on it. Appreciate you guys hanging around to watch this video. Appreciate the submission for it, and look forward to continue the conversation. Definitely let us know in the comments what you guys think about his design here. It's very unique, very different from what we do with our pigs, but definitely go out, check out his channel. The Apocalyptic Knight is the name of the channel. He's got some interesting videos over there. Seems like an interesting guy. Definitely would not want to meet him in a back alley and have a sword duel for sure. But until next time, we'll see you guys around. Thanks so much for sticking here, and we'll catch you later.